Okay, so that is going to change today. Right? Our role is to inform, to be empathetic. We're never going to know whether it's the victim or the perpetrator, the actual fraudster, or it's just a debtor coming up with an excuse. Next is ask appropriate questions to determine if the debtor is bluffing you, or like we used to say, lying to us. Okay, so later on in the session, you'll see what kind of questions you can ask, and hopefully, guys, as I said, the slides will be available. You have the training material already. So team leaders, please, QA training, please use this in your sessions with the guys. It's there available to you. It's here to empower you. As we said earlier, knowledge without action is futile. Okay, then next is obviously that we've mentioned about asking the right questions and how to convince debtors to pay debt regardless of the excuse. So there's the challenge for you. They still have to make a payment arrangement and pay. Cool. Are we doing well? Any questions, comments, please let me know. Okay, you guys can read, so I'll cover the high level. Fraud is costing our clients in all our industries a lot of money every year. In fact, in 2019, it was reported close to 430 million rand was lost. So they might take your identity, Claudette, apply for a loan at Old Mutual Finance. You'll never know about it, or you may hear about it. And then Old Mutual, you then complain to Old Mutual to say, I've never opened this account. They investigate, discover that somebody stole your identity, and then they're going to have to write the value of the loan off, and that's the losses. The losses is also, in your case, if you don't report it, you're going to be paying a loan that you haven't opened. So I'm going to give you some tips that you can apply personally, such as ask one of your colleagues in the other group. There's a link where you can get your free credit report if you can. Sometimes they offer it to you once a month. Sometimes your banks offer you a report. Guys, please do me a favor the next few days. Just go and have a look at your credit report to see if there's any accounts that you have not opened. Okay, fraud is and basically fraud. The definition it's an act of intentionally deceiving someone for personal gain through false statements or actions. So the fraudster's goal is to deceive the credit providers, is to deceive you as consumers or us. Credit fraud is illegal, and it's prosecuted by our criminal justice system. And somebody that's found guilty of this can face jail time up to 15 years. So it's a very serious offense in South Africa. There are a few factors that you need to consider. Number one, it is tough to determine if the data is truthful and when they use the excuse of fraud. So we're going to share with you some tips later on, some questions that you can ask to figure out if this guy is being honest. Obviously, we're always going to maintain a level of professionalism and empathy, but there's no way you and I are going to tell if they're being dishonest. So the principle will always be they need to pay, and I'll talk to you through how we can deal with it. Remember, you work for an external debt collection agency on behalf of our clients. Most of our clients start their collections in the early stage, so 30 days, or sometimes current, or sometimes by their customer service departments. And if this debtor now says, and often we only get accounts at 180 days or charge off or very late in the process. So they must have had a lot of time. And sometimes it's handed over to other agencies. So they must have received calls in the past from either our client or other debt collectors. So already be wary when somebody says, I've never heard of this. But I've had a friend that just had a similar experience. They've stole her identity, hers and her husband's. They then went to a cell phone company where they are their service provider, and they then applied for an upgrade. And the phone was delivered to the fraudster. And the problem is that they had the telephone number. So when the cell phone company contacted the upgrade person, the person benefiting from it, the fraudster answered the phone. So my friend would have not known until the company contacted her to say, "Hey, how are you finding how are you finding the new phone? Has it been delivered?" She says, "What? I've never applied for it, never ever." And that's how the whole process kicked off. And I'm glad I could have just helped her, but it's a painful process. She had to close all her accounts. The fact that they had the ID She had to shut down a bank account and ask for new cards, and it was new passwords, new online banking apps. And that's taken up to 2 weeks, and that's the disadvantages if you're a victim. But the problem is that the credit providers and like the cell phone company, they often treat you as you're the scallum, as they would say, because we don't know this person is lying. So therefore, they'll ask them, please get affidavits and all this other stuff just to make sure that there's they're not playing the system. But it is difficult. Let's see what you guys are saying here. No comments yet. Well, let me just check. There's a note on the system. Claudette was just clarifying her name. Cool. Look, I blame you guys. You put strange names on this thing. Okay. Another important point is when an account is handed over, the debtor would be, by the time it comes to land, or they should by then know, but there are instances where they will not know. It is also highly unlikely that our clients will hand over account where they have already received a report from the debtor saying, look, this has happened. And I'll take you through some of the processes that our clients may have. Please chat to your TLs and your managers to find out what the current processes are, and then we'll talk through that. But you need to consider these factors when you speak to the debtor, and you do that through certain questions, because this will determine whether they are honest with you. Because if they haven't reported it, you need to ask them, when did this happen? What type of fraud is it? And so forth and so on. Have you followed the process? And there are instances where they will still get calls from us because our clients are still investigating. And then there's some of your colleagues saying, yeah, but I worked for a medical thing. Nobody's going to commit fraud. Well, people commit fraud in weird and strange places. So just, as I said, this is knowledge that you've gained, and just apply the knowledge by just knowing now exactly how to deal with it. You're going to have to make a judgment call, right, in terms of how they answer your questions. But next, we're going to just see what the impact is actually on the victims. Yes, just having the experience from my friend. I mean, it is emotionally distressed them, because obviously, you just imagine your personal space has been violated. Someone is taking your identity and applying for credit facilities. It's an absolute nightmare. If you have got a business, it's even worse there as well, because it's some of the banks closing your facilities to protect you, makes it difficult to trade. Potential for financial and reputational losses. If you can't pay certain bills because your accounts have been closed, or the most of the credit providers take up to 90 days to solve a lot of this. So sometimes you're gonna maybe not your money has been taken out of your accounts, and now you're unable to pay certain things, or taking out loans with your family and friends, and you get what I'm saying. So it does have a negative impact. And then obviously you might have adverse listing on the credit bureaus. Um, so that is another challenge that has to be fixed. But so yes, that's what's important for yourselves, to find a way to prevent this, and being vigilant. And also, if our debtors who are real victims, we also have a duty just to play a role where we can just advise them what the next steps are and how to get out of it. But the problem is the debt remains with that victim if they haven't reported it. They'll be liable until they'll make the point to go to our clients and follow the necessary processes and steps to clear their names. And that, as I explained to you, just with a personal experience with a friend of mine, it's a very, very painful and lengthy process. Okay, any questions? I assume that with these questions, so this team is in the 80s already, and they probably read this material and they understand it very, very well. Okay, further impacts on the fraud, and fraud on victims. Victims, when you do speak to them, they're going to be agitated, and I'm sure if any of us here on this call discovered that our bank card has been stolen, our credit card has been compromised, or whatever the case, and somebody just zapped all the money out of your account, and somebody called you to collect on the account, you're not going to be a happy chappy, correct? So be mindful of that when you call and they are agitated. On the other hand, the fraudsters, the people that commit the crime, who's copied your mobile number and you call them, they're actually just going to ignore you. And if they do answer, they'll just kind of say what they need to and just like really don't care about your call. So just be mindful on what the behavior is like. So again, I said use your sensor, listen, ask questions. Use your mouth to ask questions. Look at the system. Look at your screen on C4 or on a Excalibur, and then make a call and ask appropriate questions. Therefore, it's important to be knowledgeable and prepared. Even though for some of you on some of the portfolios you work, you will not have a lot of these reported. And even for those of you that work on the lending portfolio with David, them and the guys and so forth, this is kind of the space that a lot of this will be happening, but sometimes not a lot. Just be ready for it. Okay. Right. So let's talk about some of the popular credit fraud, the ones that's been running for years, and they normally target people via email. So that phishing scam, not fishing in the ocean, but basically they're fishing for information. So it's normally via email that comes to your phone or to your laptop, and they'll ask you questions. Hey, watch out! You've won the lotto. Please give us your ID number and your PIN number, or pay in X rand of money, and that has been very very popular for many years. The more sophisticated syndicates will send you an email that would or an SMS, a text message. Once you open it, it will just go into your system and corrupt it or take out a lot of personal information. So, guys, lesson number one: if you have quite a few credit facilities or personal information, please on your phone, on your wherever you store your information, don't call it bank account number or identity number or passwords. Okay, these guys are very sophisticated when they actually be very careful when you're opening emails and text messages from an unknown source. Okay, counterfeit cards. Um, so this is when the victim's card has been swapped or intercepted and counterfeits are made. So basically, just an example. Just be careful when you go to your local store, when you go to a pub, go clubbing, or you go anywhere where you need your card. Um, don't do not hand the card over to the person, right? And they're going somewhere to a machine behind the thing. You can see most of these companies have mobile devices, but that is when if you do lose eyesight of that card, and they could then put it into a special device. It's called a scheming device, and they can download all your information. And do you know where information is held on your card? On that brown. Just if you turn your card around, if you have it on you right now, you'll see there's a brown magnetic strip, and that thing even has your PIN number in it. So they'll make a copy of that, give your card back. You will leave the the restaurant or pub or spaza shop or whatever, smiling, happy with your goods. In the meantime, they're clearing out your account. So please do not leave, and be careful when you give it to family and friends and say, "Yeah, use my card," because that's where it happens. Also, what they also do, then they basically take your information that they got off the magnetic strip. They'll take it off, put it on another card, and then they'll transact if they are you. Another thing that you must be careful of, people, is when you go to an ATM. Just show me who still goes to ATMs to withdraw cash or transfer money. Thumbs up. Which of you still go? Claudette. Only Claudette. There's no one else on the call. David. Okay. Okay. So, guys, there's another one. Oh, quite a few of you. So, David, seeing that you are online, did you? But David, you were in the previous training session, eh? Or am I confusing with someone else?
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you
Uh,
are.
David, so when you go to the ATM, where would you normally go in your area?
Yeah, I'll go to where I normally go to. It's a
What
place where I trust.
describe the place to me? Is the ATM inside the place? Is it outside? Is it a shop? Is it a
No,
garage? What is it?
it is outside, but it's a shopping complex. So I try to avoid the what you call the filling station ATMs.
Okay, so here's the trick, my friend. Anything outside, there is your highest risk. Whether it's a mall, whether it's a filling station, whether it's your local shop, just as the warning. Why? Because the fraudsters can access it, and they'll access it 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Only the bank would have kind of a camera right in the ATM. But these stores don't care about those things. But just for your safety sake, try rather to go to one that's inside, if especially if you're drawing cash. And then the second tip, David, is when you get to that machine, David, you remember seeing there's always a green light flashing or some light when you put the card in the thing.
Yeah, sure.
When that light's not flashing, walk away.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think I've picked that one up. Yeah.
When that light's not flashing, they mean there's a device that's been inserted into that thing, into the where you put your card in. So when you punch it in, your card will work perfectly. You'll punch in your account number, you'll draw the cash. And my friend, when you leave, somebody else takes that device out. They've got your PIN number, and then you'll just see your account's empty, and you don't know what just happened.
Yeah.
That's how sophisticated. Okay, David. So again, if you can just think about these things clearly, because the bank's going to tell you, well, my friend, you withdrew money with your PIN. So how can you say it's fraud? You know what I mean? And sometimes these guys will break the cameras in the ATM. So just be careful. Rather go inside, go to the ones that you trust, that there's no issues. And normally, if it's inside a store that you trust, then it should generally be okay. Okay.
Yeah, this is well noted.
Okay, cool. Okay. Right. And as I said, this could happen to our customers as well. But I said you're going to learn a lot about yourself. Okay. Thanks, David. Much appreciated. I don't see any other comments. And then, David, to all of you, there's also identity. This is the famous one. Be careful who you give your ID to. Places that makes copies. Why do you want a copy? What you're going to do with this copy? Because all they need is, first of all, they always target with good credit records. So they're first going to check. So I would encourage you to do that free credit checks that's available by most of the banks now and the bureaus. Check it as if you can often check just to see have you opened any accounts. Check who's done an inquiry on your credit profile because they have to show that on your report. If you see something fishy there to say, hey, home choice, I've never applied at home choice, or you know what I'm saying, then you know that at some point it's been compromised. Somebody has your identity, and they basically do it as soon as they get that. They will then access and they'll try to apply. They'll convert it into an ID, and then they'll apply for facilities. So be vigilant, please, guys. Card not present is even when the card holder and the data is right there. They've got a card, but somebody's already made a copy of that card. Right. So that's kind of the basically how this thing works. So these guys, again, my friends, are very sophisticated. So the chances are that some of our debtors will be impacted is high. As I said, $500 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of people that are impacted by fraud. And if our clients are vigilant, and you personally must be vigilant, but also understand that there's a strong possibility that the debtors that you're talking to have gone through these scams and not even be aware of it. So just start by yourself. You've got knowledge now. So apply that knowledge, and then obviously when you do confront a data that has any of these challenges, then by all means just make up a plan there to just in kind of advise them what the options are. Don't solve the problem for them because that's how we used to work. We'll tell them, sorry to hear. Okay, we need 3 months bank statement and we need 3 months copies of something and a story. Send it to us. We'll send it to the client, and then the client does something. Nothing happens in the interim. What do you do with the accounts? Remember, this will help you improve your RPC to PTP rate. So that's why it's very important to say, look, have you to inform the debtor to say, sorry to hear, but have you gone to your client's website? Obviously, you're going to be asking other questions. How long? When did this take place? And most instances, most of our clients should have a 24/7 call center or website where they can report it on. And so you'll ask the data for that reference number. Then there's also by law, the all credit providers have 90 days, and some of them take up to 90 days to investigate these matters. So you could have a problem for quite a long time. So, but I don't know any of you that lost your ID this morning or bank cards would have by now contacted your credit provider. So I'm going to share with you just a tip here as well on what else you need to do and also advise the debtors on. Also, our clients will typically close if it's a active credit card or retail card. They'll close it and issue a new one. Banks will block your accounts or you must request that they block it and they'll issue a replacement card. But we often work in the inactive space and the loan, so they'll put a special notification on your account while they're investigating it. Our clients will likely not access an account where they've received a legitimate complaint or report that the debtor's account's been is now a victim of fraud. But also remember, they only can claim this excuse once the investigation has been concluded. So just be careful that people not use this as a nice excuse now to find a new way to not pay. For you, if somebody's stolen your identity, and I've had this experience 4 years ago, even while looking after a fraud department. I had a burglary, they stole my laptop, in there was my ID. I immediately called South African Fraud Prevention Services, SAFPS. The website address is right here. Contacted them to say my ID was stolen. That was the Thursday evening. Friday morning, the fraud department of RCS calls me to say, hey, we just received an application for the loan for 50,000 rand. I said, no ways. But the reason we're calling you is because South African Fraud Prevention Services notified us that you informed them that the account, your ID has been stolen. Currently, we're saying to debtors, go to the police station. That affidavit doesn't help this process. That affidavit is for the client's benefit to say that the debtor is not lying and to explain the whole story, what happened. That helps them with the investigation. What helps you and our debtors im- immediately is contacting this company. Okay, all our clients should be using them, and they're like the central database of hot IDs. Hot IDs are stolen or red IDs. Okay, so this must be your first phone call. If you call a debtor and the debtor say, "Hey, my ID was stolen this morning or a few days ago," you ask them, "Did you contact South African Fraud Prevention Services?" If they have not given the number, did you contact our client? Yes, no, whatever the case. But still, you're going to say, thank you for that. Just remember, you're still liable for this account until our client inform us that obviously it's not fraud or they're going to remove the account from us. Okay. Guys, this is something important that I'm going to remind team leaders and yourselves every single day. Um, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So if you're not going to apply your minds, you're not going to study today, or watch the YouTube video to remind you, and you don't get a good result, we're going to be having a nice follow-up meeting. But generally, for all these objections, just make sure you're sharp, you're on top of it, you understand how to deal with it. It will then help you be a smart agent, and we're going to move away from just listening to data's stories and just putting a code there in the system and ignoring it. These are testers that we've made contact with, and we need to deal with those objectives very carefully and listen to them very carefully and respond to them professionally. But we want a promise and a payment from them. Okay, there's some things to consider. It's the debtor's responsibility, David, not yours, to report the crime. Our clients, whoever they are, will investigate it, are required to investigate it by law. They have up to 90 days to investigate it. So the sooner the debtor reports it, the quicker the process starts. While the investigation goes on, until our client informs us to stop collecting, you continue with the process. I know your current process is to them to send you forms and you send it somewhere, but the account is still with us until our client makes a call. So please understand our role is not to be customer service. Yes, we'll be empathetic, but our role is to get down to the business of collection. Feel free to guide the debtor through the process. They need to go to our client's accounts. They must go to if the ID has been stolen. We've spoken to you about SAFPS. If you're not sure, just ask your team leaders after the session what the process is. The Landau process is quite clear. If they give you this excuse, please make sure you update C4 to say fraud or identity stolen fraud so that your colleagues can see what's going on and put some description on the story. The clients, if the debtor has reported it, the client would give them a reference number, often via email. So ask for that. You've already spoken about this area. And remember, and if I zoom in, until fraud is proven either through investigation by a client, the debtor is still liable for the payment. So this is not dropping a call and putting a code there to say fraud, waiting on investigation. You need to still push for payment. This is where the difficult part comes in. Right. So next we're going to deal with a few tips and kind of asking the right questions. And you will learn later on when we do negotiation training. Um, we're going to teach you how to ask questions for answers that you already have. That's on the screen, for example. So this is where we're using the other sensor or one of the tools that we have, which is our mouth, as to ask the questions to see whether they're being honest or not. Okay. The art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. So far we've been busy for 34 minutes. We haven't had any questions asked. So I'm assuming you are very well prepared and you know the subject exceptionally well, right? Because if you're not asking, you're not learning. So if there's any area where you do not understand, please stop, ask me, or ask me as we finish the theory. Okay, after the debt is raised, fraud is an excuse for non-payment. Use the following questions to help you assess if they are truthful or bluffing. That's why you can ask the questions. Is this person lying to us or they're actually sincere? Always assume that they are honest, guys. Be empathetic, yet always be firm in your approach and your tone. Okay? So yes, you're not going to be a pushover, and like we've done in the past, accepted their stories. We're not in the business of stories accepting, right? Okay. So, for example, this is not a script; it's the guideline. I'm really sorry to hear about that you're a victim of fraud, Mr. Nell. And can you tell me what type of fraud is it? What you know? Because they should know by now if they're now reporting it. The fact that they're saying to you, "Hey, fraud has been committed," therefore, I'm not paying. It's still under investigation. So they should have an idea of what's going on, like you and I would. Or if they said, well, I've never applied for this loan, or I've never had this Lancet account, or I've never had this Planet Fitness account, and this is your problem now, David. Fix it for me. And David says, okay, send me an affidavit. David, I don't know what you're going to do with it. You're sending it to a department. So I think educate them and get down to a promise to pay. Ask them these questions. When did it take place? When did you hear about it? When do when did this thing happen? So when is the first time that you heard that you've got a Planet Fitness account? How soon after the fraud event did you report this to Planet Fitness? Asking these questions, guys, the fraudster won't know this. A debtor that's lying won't have these answers. They will just get agitated with you. A debtor that's honest is going to tell you, I've done this 3 weeks ago. I have a reference number. I found the blah, 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 blah. You get what I'm saying? That's still not a reason that you take a promise to pay, because you have to say that until our client take this account away from me or notifies us, that means the investigation is done. Remember, this guys, the client, are the ones that's going to lose the money if it is confirmed fraud. Okay, they're going to have to write this off. So obviously, our clients are going to take their time. They're going to do things properly. Okay, is it clear so far? Okay, and then if you have reported this to our client, Planet Fitness, how long did they say they're going to take with the investigation? Um, Did Planet Fitness contact you? Because remember, I told you they would have maybe, before the account comes to us, handed over to someone else, or they may have their customer service department may have called them, or the collections department may have called them. And so this client can't say, this is the first time I hear about this, right? If they are untruthful. If they're untruthful, they said, yes, they got a call a few months ago and we've started the process. Remember, I'll always say that they still have to go through. They must still make payment arrangements. Was the account closed by Planet Fitness or by Old Mutual Finance or by Lancet or by whatever the provider is? If your identification was stolen, if you were saying my identity was stolen, did you report it to South African Fraud Prevention Services? Another question. So don't ask all 8, 10 questions. Listen and ask a question that you think will figure out whether they're bluffing or not. So you're going to have to just think about this whole process all the time. Always inform the debtor until the investigation is complete. They still going to be liable for payment. And that's where your job becomes interesting. Finally, everybody, um, the important thing that if the debtor does not report the fraud, says, well, it's your job, David. You need to the consequences is dire. It's going to impact them financially, as I've explained. Chances are they're going to be listed. And they're now liable for debt that they claim they haven't applied for. So it's not our job. They need to own the process. They need to phone Planet Fitter to say, hey, why is Landau calling me? I've already got my reference number. So that's going to be the big change for you guys starting today. Is let them own it. Say as a service, Mr. Debtor, you can send the information to us, but that process takes much longer. And until our client lets us know about the fraud and they remove account from us, we're gonna have to call you, SMS you, email you all the time. So the quickest way to deal with this is to make a payment arrangement with us, because what that does, it shows our client that you're sincere. Right? It shows them that you're sincere. You're not just not paying your account. And obviously, if they found that a definite fraud was committed in your account, they will definitely refund the money. But that's done in goodwill. So that's your sales pitch, guys, on getting them to pay. But they need to know that the investigation is not our job to decide, okay, we will investigate, because we're not going to investigate it. The client will do that investigation. We're just providing information to them. Okay. Make sure when you wrap up is to capture the fraud reason, and just make sure that either your dialer or C4 is updated appropriately. And guys, that is fraud, complex subject matter. That's in a nutshell. I'm looking forward now to your comments and your questions, and hopefully you'll apply. Just to inform you, obviously you'll be